I didn't scream when I opened the door. I didn't drop my keys, didn't gasp, didn't freeze like a woman in a movie who needs the audience to understand what's happening. I just stood there, silent, because my brain understood before my heart caught up. My husband was in our bed, not sleeping, not alone. He was on top of my best friend, like he had every right to be there. Like that room, that house, that life belonged to him more than it ever belonged to me. Her hair was spread across my pillow. My pillow. Her nails were dug into his back. And the sound that came out of her mouth wasn't shame. It was laughter. A small, breathless laugh between kisses, like this was fun. Like this was a game. Like I was the joke. My stomach didn't flip. It dropped. Hard. I watched for 1 second too long, and my eyes landed on details that burned into me like a brand. His wedding band flashing when he shifted his weight. The sheet twisted around her thigh. The little necklace I gave her last Christmas hanging between her breasts. My gift. My ring. My bed. My life. My husband turned his head first. Not because he felt me. Not because he sensed danger. Because the floor creaked under my heel. His eyes widened. For half a second he looked scared. Then he looked annoyed, like I had interrupted him. "You weren't supposed to be home," he said. That sentence hit me harder than anything I saw. Not, "I'm sorry." Not, "Please don't, not let me explain." Just, "You weren't supposed to be here." As if the only real mistake was timing. My best friend scrambled for the sheet, pulling it up with shaking hands, her cheeks flushed, her eyes glossy. She put on a face like she had practiced it in the mirror, wide-eyed, wounded, innocent. "This isn't what it looks like," she whispered. I let out a low laugh. It wasn't humor. It wasn't hysterical. It was disbelief. "It's exactly what it looks like," I said. My voice sounded calm. Too calm. Like my body had switched to a setting it knew well. Survive first. Feel later. My husband rolled off her and stood up naked like he didn't care what I saw. He didn't rush to cover himself. He didn't look ashamed. He walked to the edge of the bed, grabbed his boxers, and put them on slowly, staring at me like he was waiting for me to fall apart. When I didn't, his mouth tightened. "You're not going to say anything?" he asked. I blinked once. "I did." He scoffed. "So that's it? You're just going to stand there?" My best friend clutched the sheet to her chest, shaking her head as if she was the one betrayed. "Please," she said. "You don't understand. It just happened." I looked at her. This woman had held my hand when my mother died. She had sat at my kitchen table and promised me, with tears in her eyes, that she'd always protect me. Now she was in my bed, saying it just happened. I didn't feel like punching her. I felt like erasing her. I turned my eyes back to my husband. "How long?" I asked. He hesitated. That was the only crack in his arrogance. "Does it matter?" he said quickly, trying to regain control. "You've been distant. Cold. You act like you don't even want me anymore." I stared at him. So this was the story he told himself. That the betrayal wasn't his fault. That he was a victim. That my pain was an inconvenience he had earned the right to ignore. "You have needs," I repeated. Slow, like I was tasting his excuse. "So you chose my best friend." My best friend made a soft sound. "Please don't." "Don't what?" I cut in, still calm. "Don't say it out loud? Don't make you hear what you did?" My husband's eyes narrowed. "Stop acting like you're some saint. You barely touched me for months." My fingers tightened around the strap of my purse. Because if I opened my hand, I might do something I shouldn't do. In this house. In this part of my life. With witnesses. And I didn't do messy. Not anymore. I stepped fully into the room. My best friend flinched like I was going to jump at her. Interesting. Deep down, she knew. Not who I really was. Not yet. but she knew there was something in me that wasn't normal, something dangerous. I walked to the nightstand on my side of the bed and picked up my phone charger like it belonged to me, because it did. Then I looked at the framed photo beside it. The three of us at the beach last summer. Me in the middle, smiling like I trusted them. My husband with his arm around my waist. My best friend pressed into my other side, cheek against mine. My throat tightened, but I didn't let it show. I set the photo face down. That was all the emotion they were going to get from me. My husband's voice rose a notch. "What are you doing?" I turned toward him. "Leaving." He laughed, sharp and relieved. "Good. Honestly? Good. Because I'm tired of walking on eggshells around you." Walking on eggshells. He said it like I was the problem. Like I was the one who betrayed. Like he had been forced into her arms by my silence. I nodded once, as if I agreed. And that confused him. He expected tears. Begging. Rage. He didn't know what to do with calm. My best friend whispered my name like she still had the right to say it. "Please, don't tell anyone." I looked at her again, and I smiled. Not warm, not friendly, just controlled. "Oh," I said softly. "I'm not going to tell anyone." Her shoulders dropped in relief. My husband exhaled too, like the worst part was over. They thought my silence meant I was weak. They thought my calm meant I was defeated. They had no idea my silence meant something else entirely. It meant planning. I walked out of the bedroom without rushing, without slamming the door, without giving them the satisfaction of seeing me break. Down the hallway, my bare feet didn't make a sound on the polished floor. In the kitchen, the clock above the stove ticked, like nothing had changed. I grabbed my coat from the chair, slipped my feet into my shoes, and stepped outside into the cold air. Only then, when the door clicked shut behind me, did my chest tighten. Not with tears, with pressure, with heat, with the sharp, clean edge of something inside me waking up. I pulled my phone from my purse and stared at the screen. My contacts filled it. Normal names, normal numbers, normal life. And then, at the bottom, hidden behind a plain label that no one would question, Marco. I didn't call immediately. I stood there on the porch for a moment, breathing, listening to my own pulse, because this was the moment where the line would be crossed. Once I made that call, I wasn't just a betrayed wife. I was who I had always been, whether I wanted to be or not. A woman built to survive betrayal. A woman who didn't beg men to love her. A woman who made men regret underestimating her. Inside, I heard laughter again. My husband's voice, my best friend's voice, light, careless, cruel. I looked back at the house, and I finally understood something with perfect clarity. They didn't just betray me. They insulted me. They treated me like I was nothing, and the only reason they could do that was because they didn't know the truth. I lifted the phone and pressed call. It rang once, twice. Then Marco answered, voice low and instantly alert. "Signora." I swallowed, keeping my voice steady. "I need you." No questions, no hesitation. "Yes," he said immediately. "Where are you?" I glanced at the front door like I could see through it, like I could see them still tangled in my bed. "At my husband's house," I said. Marco went silent for a fraction of a second, and when he spoke again, his voice changed, harder. "Understood." I let out a slow breath. "I want everything done clean." "It will be," he said. My fingers tightened on the phone. "And Marco?" "Yes, signora." I stared at the window, at the faint movement behind the curtains. "They can't know it was me," I said. "Not yet." A pause. Then, "As you wish." I ended the call. And for the first time since I opened that bedroom door, my mouth curved into something real. Not happiness, not peace, power. Because the truth was simple. My husband had cheated with my best friend. and they had no idea they had just awakened a Mafia queen. And I never lose. I didn't drive to my mother's house. I didn't call a friend. I didn't pull into some lonely parking lot to cry until my eyes swelled shut. I drove straight into the part of my life my husband never knew existed. The city lights blurred around me as I crossed the bridge, hands steady on the wheel, face calm in the mirror. If anyone had looked at me from the outside, they would have seen a woman leaving a marriage. They wouldn't have seen what was really happening, because I wasn't leaving. I was returning. The gate recognized my plate before the guard even lifted his flashlight. Metal slid aside with a soft, controlled hum. Cameras tracked my car the entire way up the long driveway, following me like silent eyes that never blinked. 2 men stepped out of the shadows as I parked. Not security in uniforms. Men in dark suits, hands near their waists, scanning the night like they could smell danger before it arrived. One of them opened my door without speaking. The other offered his hand as I stepped out. "Signora," they said together, heads dipping. The title hit different tonight. It didn't comfort me. It reminded me of what I was about to do. I walked through the front doors and into the mansion that was never mine on paper, but had always been mine in reality. The air inside was warm, quiet, clean. The kind of quiet that only exists when everyone knows exactly what they're supposed to do. A woman in black approached from the hallway, her posture perfect, her expression neutral. "Welcome back," she said softly. "They're waiting." I nodded once and kept walking. My heels clicked on marble, echoing down corridors lined with dark paintings and old money. The walls didn't hold family photos. They held history, the kind that didn't belong in my husband's world of brunch plans, vacation posts, and fake smiles at dinner parties. I entered the private elevator. It scanned my face. Then my fingerprint. A soft beep, and the doors closed. As the elevator descended, my phone buzzed. A message from my best friend. "Please answer. Please." I didn't respond. I didn't block her either. Not yet. I wanted her to keep thinking she still had a chance. I wanted her to keep sending messages, keep exposing herself, keep trying to control the story, because I was done being controlled. The elevator doors opened into an underground level that didn't feel like a basement. It felt like a command center. The air was cooler, the lighting softer. The hallway stretched wide, guarded at both ends. Men stood with their backs straight, their eyes sharp, their attention locked on every movement. They didn't look at me like a woman. They looked at me like authority. Marco was waiting near the double doors. Dark hair, hard jaw. That same calm that never cracked. He didn't ask if I was okay. He didn't ask what happened. He just stepped forward, lowered his voice, and said, "Do you want me to bring them here?" I stopped in front of him, my body still wrapped in the shock of what I'd seen, but my mind already moving. "No," I replied. "Not yet." Marco studied my face, then nodded. "You're hurt," he said, not as a question. I swallowed. "I'm furious." "That's better," he answered. "Fury makes you careful." He opened the doors for me. The room inside was long and dark, with a polished table that could seat 12. Screens lined the wall, showing live feeds from different locations. Documents lay neatly arranged, like everything had been prepared the moment I made that call. Because it had. My world didn't wait for me. My world moved when I breathed. 6 men stood as I entered. Older, younger, different styles, same energy. Disciplined, dangerous, loyal. They all nodded. "Signora." I didn't sit immediately. I walked to the head of the table, placed my purse down with measured calm, and stared at the screens without really seeing them. Then I spoke. My husband betrayed me. No gasps, no pity, no emotional reactions. Just focus. Marco stepped closer, voice low. His name and location? I gave it. My husband's full name, the house address, the company he worked for, the the places he liked to go, the routines he never changed because he never thought he had enemies. That was the funniest part. He had enemies now, and he created them himself. One of the men at the table, gray hair, expensive watch, eyes like steel, spoke softly. "Do you want him dead?" The question wasn't dramatic. It was practical. A cold, clean option. My stomach twisted, not because I couldn't do it, because I could. And that scared me more than anything. I took a slow breath. No. Marco's eyes flicked to mine. He wasn't surprised. He was listening. "I don't want him dead," I said again, firmer. "I want him awake when it happens. I want him aware." The gray-haired man nodded once. "Then we break him." I looked around the room. We break them. Because it wasn't just my husband. It was her, my best friend, the woman who had eaten at my table and called me sister, the woman who had watched me build a life, watched me try to be normal, watched me love a man who didn't deserve it. She hadn't just taken my husband. She had tried to take my identity, and that was a mistake. I sat down slowly, hands resting flat on the table. My nails were still neat, my hair still perfect, my face still calm. I looked like a woman who had everything under control. And in this room, that was true. I turned to Marco. "Tell me everything." He tapped a remote. One of the screens lit up with a profile. My husband, his job, his salary, his debts, his lies, the calls he'd made, the private accounts he thought were secret. Then another screen. My best friend, her boyfriend, her finances, her history, her hunger for attention. Then another. The affair. Photos, dates, hotels, messages. My throat tightened, but I didn't look away. Because if I looked away, it would mean they still had power over me. And I was done giving them that. Marco's voice stayed calm as he spoke. "It began 3 months ago." My jaw tightened. 3 months. He had looked me in the eyes for 3 months and acted like a husband. He had kissed my forehead before work. He had asked me what I wanted for dinner. He had climbed into bed beside me after being inside her. And my best friend had smiled at me the next morning like she wasn't carrying my destruction in her purse. My hands curled into fists. "What else?" Marco tapped again. A voice recording played. My husband's voice, laughing. "She's not going to do anything," he said. "She's too soft." Then my best friend's voice, sweet and cruel. "She's not even that smart. She doesn't see what's right in front of her." My chest burned. Not tears. Heat. Rage. I stared at the screen as the recording ended. Then I leaned back in my chair. A slow exhale left me. "Good," I said. Marco blinked. "Good?" I nodded. "They think I'm soft. They think I'm stupid. They think I won't do anything." My lips curved, not with happiness, but with control. "Let them believe that." One of the men at the table shifted. "What is the plan, Signora?" I looked at the screens, the data, the access. Everything my husband thought he had built could be dismantled in a week. But I didn't want a week. I wanted a slow collapse. I wanted him waking up every day, confused, panicked, losing piece after piece without knowing why. I wanted him crawling back to me not because he loved me, but because he had nowhere else to go. And when he finally looked me in the eyes and begged, I wanted him to realize the truth. Not that I was powerful, that I had always been powerful. He just never noticed, because he didn't think my power mattered. I stood up. Everyone in the room straightened automatically. "My husband is going to think I'm broken," I said. "He's going to think I'm embarrassed and ashamed." I paused. "Make sure he believes that." Marco's expression stayed neutral, but his eyes lit with understanding. "And her?" someone asked. I smiled again, colder this time. "She's going to believe she won," I replied. "She's going to post photos, make hints, start showing off in small ways. I walked around the table slowly, like I was circling a target. "Let her," I said. "The higher she climbs, the harder she falls." Marco's phone buzzed. He glanced down, then looked back at me. "They're calling you," he said. I didn't need to ask who. I could already imagine my husband's voice, irritated, demanding, pretending he still had control. And her voice, crying, pleading, trying to paint herself as a victim. I didn't feel the urge to answer. I felt the urge to enjoy the fact that they were afraid, because fear meant the game had started. I reached for my phone, stared at the screen as it lit up with my husband's name. Then I looked up at Marco. "Track every call," I said calmly. "Record everything." Marco nodded. "Done." I didn't answer the call. I let it ring. Then I silenced it. My husband would call again. My best friend would beg again. They would both grow more desperate with every hour of my silence. And the more desperate they became, the easier they would be to break. I walked to the mirror on the far wall. It reflected me clearly. Perfect makeup, steady eyes, controlled mouth. A woman who looked like she belonged in luxury and calm. Not a woman whose heart had just been ripped open. But in my world, pain wasn't something you displayed. Pain was something you used. My phone buzzed again. This time it was her. "Please." "I'm scared." I stared at her message. Then I typed one sentence. "Don't worry, I'm not angry." I hit send, because I wanted her to breathe again. I wanted her to relax. I wanted her to think she had gotten away with it. Then I turned off my phone and handed it to Marco. "For now," I said, "I'm going to sleep." Marco looked slightly surprised. "Sleep?" I nodded. "Yes, because tomorrow I would begin the part of the story no one would see coming. The part where the betrayed wife stops acting like a victim, and the Mafia queen starts acting like herself. As I walked out of the room, my heels echoing through the underground halls, my chest still burned, but my steps didn't shake, because I wasn't lost, I wasn't broken, I was focused. And soon, they were going to finally learn what they had done. Not to a wife, to a queen. I slept 3 hours. Not because my heart was calm, and not because I forgave anyone, because I needed my mind sharp. When I opened my eyes, the ceiling above me wasn't the one from my marriage home. It was dark, smooth, silent, built for privacy, built for secrets. The kind of room where decisions were made that never made the news. I sat up, barefoot on cold stone, and for a moment I let the memory hit me again. My bed, my ring, her laugh. Then I pushed it down. Not because it didn't hurt, because pain didn't get to lead. Marco was waiting outside my door like he had never moved. "Signora," he said. "They called 16 times. "Good," I replied. He handed me a tablet. "And they're getting bolder." The screen showed messages from my husband. "We need to talk. Stop ignoring me. You're being dramatic. You're going to regret making this ugly." Then messages from her. "I swear I didn't mean to hurt you. Please answer. I'm crying. I can't breathe. I'm so sorry." I stared at her words and felt nothing soft. No sympathy, no nostalgia. Only a quiet, clean certainty. "You sent her what you told me to send," Marco said. I nodded. "She thinks she's safe." "She's not," he answered. I walked to the wardrobe and pulled on a simple outfit. Black coat, dark jeans, nothing flashy. In my husband's world, I needed to look like the woman he thought he knew. The harmless one, the one who would leave quietly and disappear. I turned toward Marco. "What's the first move?" Marco's expression tightened with focus. "We can cut his access today. Freeze accounts, cancel cards, hit his credit. He'll panic within hours." I shook my head. "Not today." Marco paused. He knew better than to question me, but I could see he wanted to understand. "He'll blame the bank," I explained. He'll call customer service. He'll think it's a mistake. Marco nodded slowly. I want him blaming me, I continued. I want him thinking I'm finally doing something, so he underestimates the real thing. Marco's mouth barely moved, but I caught the smallest sign of approval. So we let him think you're emotional. Yes, I said. We give him a problem he thinks he can handle. I took the tablet and scrolled to the profile again. My husband's job, his habits, the people he needed to impress, the coworker he flirted with even before my best friend. Then I pointed to one detail. A lunch meeting, I said. Today. Marco leaned in. With his boss. Make sure his boss hears something, I said calmly. Something small, not enough to fire him, enough to watch him. Marco understood instantly. A rumor. A whisper, I corrected. In my world, whispers move faster than bullets. He lowered his head. It will be done. I stepped outside into the morning air that felt too normal for what I was about to do. The sky was bright. Birds were loud. The world didn't care that I had been betrayed. That was fine. The world didn't need to care. Only my husband needed to. On the drive back to our house, I practiced my face in the rearview mirror. Not crying, not furious, just tired. A woman who had been hurt and didn't know what to do next. The type of woman my husband loved to handle, to control, to dismiss. Perfect. When I pulled into the driveway, my hands didn't shake. I walked through the front door like I still belonged there. Because I did. For now. My husband was in the kitchen, fully dressed, tie slightly loose, coffee in his hand. He looked up fast, eyes scanning me like he expected a fight. Then he paused. Because I didn't look like a fight. I looked quiet. He exhaled like he was relieved. Like my silence meant he could still steer the situation. There you are, he said. Jesus, you can't just disappear. I set my purse down slowly. I needed space. He scoffed, but his shoulders lowered. Well, we're going to talk now. Like adults. I met his eyes and kept mine flat. Okay. That single word threw him off. He blinked. Okay? I nodded once. He had rehearsed a whole speech, I could tell. Anger, excuses, blame. But calm made him lose his footing. He moved closer, voice dropping like he was trying to sound reasonable. Look, what happened was messy. It shouldn't have happened like that. Like that, I repeated softly, as if the problem was the timing. He didn't catch the insult. You and I haven't been good for a while, he continued. You know that. I waited. He stepped closer. I didn't want to hurt you, but you've been distant. The same excuse, the same script. I tilted my head. So you chose her. His jaw tightened. It wasn't like that. From the hallway, footsteps. She appeared, in one of my robes, hair still damp, cheeks pink. She was trying to look small, fragile, ashamed, but her eyes gave her away. She wanted to see my reaction. She wanted to see if I would beg. She wanted to feel chosen. Hey, she whispered, like we were still friends. I looked at her. Slowly, carefully. She hugged the robe tighter around herself, as if my gaze was a hand around her throat. I'm so sorry, she said. I didn't know how to stop it. My husband glanced at her, then back to me. We're not doing this with her here. He snapped, like he had the right to set rules. I raised a hand gently. It's fine. Both of them froze again. Because I wasn't doing what I was supposed to do. My best friend's eyebrows trembled. You're not angry? I let my shoulders drop a little, like I was exhausted. Like I had nothing left. I'm angry, I said quietly. But I don't want a scene. My husband's body relaxed even more. He almost looked proud, like he had successfully turned me into something manageable. Good, he said, because we can be civil. We can figure out what happens next. He took a sip of coffee like he hadn't just destroyed our marriage. I looked down. I let my lashes lower. I let silence stretch. Then I spoke softly. I'm going to stay somewhere else for a while. My husband nodded quickly. That's best. My best friend's lips parted, relief almost visible. They thought this was the victory lap. My husband gestured toward the living room. We'll separate like adults. No drama, no ugly stuff. Of course, I said. He stepped closer again, voice turning firm. And you're not going to tell anyone. You hear me? There it was. Not guilt, control. He didn't want shame. He didn't want consequences. I looked up at him, eyes calm. I won't. My best friend let out a shaky breath. My husband stared at me, suspicious now. Why are you being like this? I forced a small smile. Because I loved you, I said, like it hurt to admit it. And I don't want to hate you. His face softened for half a second. Men like him always softened when a woman handed them forgiveness they didn't deserve. He reached out, like he wanted to touch my shoulder. I stepped back. Not fast, not dramatic. Just enough. I'm going to pack, I said. He nodded, watching me like he was trying to read something behind my eyes. He couldn't, because he had never learned how to read me. Upstairs, I moved through the bedroom with quiet efficiency. I didn't take everything. That would look planned. I took the basics. Clothes. A few personal items. My documents, only the ones he wouldn't notice missing. Then I paused at the closet. I reached behind a row of dresses and pressed a hidden latch. A small compartment opened. Inside was a second phone. A passport with a different last name. Cash. A tiny black ledger. My real life. I took the second phone and slid it into my coat pocket. Downstairs, my husband followed me to the door like he was escorting a guest out of his home. Listen, he said, lowering his voice. I don't want this to get complicated. I looked at him, calm as glass. It won't. He nodded, satisfied. My best friend stood behind him, eyes glossy, doing her best to look remorseful. But the corners of her mouth kept fighting a smile. I stepped outside. Cold air hit my face again, and this time, I didn't feel pressure. I felt control. In my car, I drove away slowly, like a woman leaving with her pride bruised, not a woman leaving with a plan. At the first red light, my second phone buzzed. A message from Marco. Whisper delivered. Boss is watching him. I stared at the screen, then typed back one word. Good. Because today wasn't about destroying him. Today was about setting the stage, about making him feel small stress, just enough to crack his confidence, so that when the real collapse came, he wouldn't see it until he was already buried. The phone buzzed again. Another message, this one from an unknown number. I heard what happened. If you need anything, call me. No name, just the sentence. My pulse shifted, sharp. I stared at it, suspicious. And then the second message came through. It's me. We met once. You didn't flinch. I liked that. I inhaled slowly. I knew exactly who it was. The man from the other world. The one whose eyes had recognized me before words ever could. I didn't answer right away. Because in my life, trust wasn't given. It was tested. But I couldn't deny what I felt when I read his message. Not comfort. Not softness. Something dangerous. Curiosity. And for the first time since betrayal ripped my life open, I realized the story wasn't only about revenge, it was also about what came after. I typed one line back. Tell me your name. And as I hit send, a chill ran through me. Not fear, anticipation. Because if he was stepping into my world now, then the next chapter wouldn't just be about ruining the people who betrayed me. It would be about the man who might stand beside me when the queen finally stopped hiding. His reply came faster than I expected. Adrian Hale. Just a name. No title. No explanation. No attempt to impress me. That alone told me more than a long introduction ever could. I didn't answer immediately. I drove in silence for several minutes, letting the city move around me like nothing had changed. Traffic lights, pedestrians, normal life. The kind of life I had pretended to want. The second phone vibrated again. You don't trust easily, that's smart. A pause, then another message. I'm not asking you to. I pulled into a quiet street and stopped the car. My fingers rested on the steering wheel as I stared at the screen. Most men tried to push, to charm, to take control. He was doing none of that. I typed back. Why are you contacting me? This time he took longer. Because you're standing in the middle of a war you haven't fully stepped into yet. And because when I saw you before, I knew you weren't who you pretended to be. I didn't like that he was right. I liked even less that he wasn't afraid of it. I sent one last message. We talk later, not now. 3 dots appeared, then disappeared. Whenever you're ready. No pressure. I started the engine again and drove to a hotel on the edge of the city. Discreet, expensive, forgettable. The kind of place my husband would never think to look. Inside, the room was quiet and impersonal. I locked the door, kicked off my shoes, and leaned my forehead against the cool glass of the window. Only then did I let my chest tighten. Not enough to cry. Enough to remind myself I was still human. I straightened, pulled myself together, and checked the second phone. Updates from Marco. Credit card flagged. Small delay. Boss requested a meeting tomorrow morning. He's nervous. I smiled faintly. Good. That night, I didn't dream. I planned. The next day, I watched everything unfold from a distance. My husband called me 5 times before noon. I didn't answer. At 12:47 p.m., he sent a message. My card got declined. Did you do something? There it was. The first crack. I waited 20 minutes before replying. I don't know what you're talking about. The response came instantly. Don't play games with me. This isn't funny. I imagined him standing at a counter, embarrassment crawling up his neck, anger replacing guilt. Good. At 2:10 p.m., Marco called. They moved his meeting up, he said. Not a good sign. Did he say anything? I asked. He asked if we were involved. My lips curved slightly. And? I told him no, Marco replied. Which is true. For now. I ended the call and sat on the edge of the bed. This was the dangerous part. Not the money, not the power, timing. That afternoon I received another message from Adrian. I assumed today isn't easy. I stared at the words longer than necessary. You assume a lot, I typed. I observe patterns, he replied. You're in control, that's why it's hard. I exhaled slowly. What do you want? I asked. There was a pause long enough that I wondered if he'd stop responding. Then, to meet you properly. No masks, no lies. I considered it. Meeting him wasn't dangerous. Wanting to wasn't safe. Where? I asked. His answer came with an address. Neutral territory. Public enough to avoid surprises. Private enough to talk. He had thought it through. I changed clothes carefully, not to impress, not to seduce. Simple, sharp, controlled. When I arrived, he was already there. Seated, still. Watching the room like he knew how quickly things could turn. He stood when he saw me. Not out of politeness, out of respect. Thank you for coming, he said. His voice was calm, low. No edge of hunger or ego. You said you recognized me, I replied, not sitting yet. How? Because when people think they're watching something tragic, he said, they look away. You didn't. I sat. Up close, his eyes were sharper than I remembered. Not cold. Focused. What do you do, Adrian? I asked. He smiled slightly. I solve problems before they become disasters. That's vague. It's safer that way. I studied him. His hands were relaxed but ready. His posture open but alert. You're not here to save me, I said. No, he replied immediately. I don't save women. Good, I said, because I don't need saving. He nodded. I know. The silence between us wasn't awkward. It was charged. Your husband underestimated you, Adrian said. I didn't react. He thinks power is loud, Adrian continued. He thinks the person who raises their voice wins. And? I asked. And the quiet ones always bury them. A flicker of something passed through me. Interest. You're playing a long game, he said. That's dangerous. So is interrupting me, I replied coolly. His mouth curved. Fair. We talked for an hour. Not about feelings, not about betrayal, about systems, control, loyalty, the cost of pretending to be smaller than you are. When I stood to leave, he didn't stop me. You'll need allies soon, he said. I already have them, I replied. Not like me, he said gently. I turned. And why would I need you? He met my gaze evenly. Because when this ends, he said, you're going to be visible. And visibility attracts men who don't ask permission. I studied him for a long second. Then I nodded once. I'll keep that in mind. That night, my husband finally lost control. He showed up at the hotel, angry, panicked, desperate. I know you're doing this, he said, pacing the room. My boss is watching me. Accounts are acting weird. Don't play innocent. I leaned against the desk, arms crossed. Calm. You cheated on me, I said softly. And you're surprised things feel unstable? That has nothing to do with work, he snapped. I tilted my head. Doesn't it? His mouth opened, closed. Fear crept into his eyes. You're not that powerful, he said, more to himself than to me. I stepped closer. I was always powerful, I said quietly. You just never cared to notice. He left without another word. That night, alone again, I stared at the city lights and felt something shift inside me. Revenge was still coming. But now there was something else moving alongside it. A man who saw me clearly. A future that didn't shrink me. And the growing certainty that when the dust settled, I wouldn't just be a queen reclaiming her throne. I would be choosing who stood beside it. The collapse didn't happen all at once. It never does. It started with silence. My husband stopped calling with anger and started calling with confusion. His messages changed tone, less demanding, more uncertain. Did you talk to the bank? My boss canceled our meeting. Can we talk? Please. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. By then, the damage was already moving faster than he could run. I watched it unfold the same way I watched markets fall. Numbers shifting, patterns breaking, confidence draining out of people who had always believed the ground beneath them was solid. He went to work one morning and came home early. Too early. I knew what that meant before Marco confirmed it. They didn't fire him, Marco said over the phone. They sidelined him. I closed my eyes slowly. That was worse. Being fired made you angry. Being sidelined made you paranoid. What about her? I asked. Marco exhaled. She's posting, carefully, but she's posting. I pictured it instantly. Smiling photos cropped just enough to look innocent. Captions that hinted without confessing. The performance of a woman who believed she had finally been chosen. Let her, I said. Make sure people see it. Marco hesitated. People talk. I want them to, I replied. Because gossip was the oxygen of destruction. The more visible she became, the harder it would be for her to hide when the truth surfaced. That night, my husband called again. I answered. He froze the moment he heard my voice. Hey, he said cautiously, like I was an animal that might bolt. Thank you for picking up. What do you want? I asked calmly. Silence stretched. Then, I think something's wrong. I almost laughed. Something's been wrong for a while, I said. No, he insisted. I mean, things are falling apart. My job, money. People are acting strange. I leaned back against the couch, crossing my legs slowly. That's unfortunate. Don't do that, he snapped. Don't act like you don't know. I let my voice cool further. You think I'm capable of ruining your career? Another pause. Then softer. I don't know what you're capable of anymore. There it was, the first crack of real fear. I loved you, I said. And you cheated on me with the one person you knew would hurt the most. I made a mistake, he said quickly. I didn't know. You didn't know what? I interrupted. That actions have consequences? His breath was audible now, shallow, uneven. I want to fix this, he said. We can talk. We can figure something out. Something. That was all I was to him now. I ended the call. 10 minutes later, he showed up. I hadn't told him where I was staying. That meant he had followed me. That meant desperation had crossed into panic. He knocked hard. I opened the door slowly. He looked awful. Tie gone, shirt wrinkled, eyes bloodshot. The confidence that used to wrap around him like armor was gone. I need to talk to you, he said. You're talking, I replied, stepping aside. He entered like he expected to find something. Maybe a clue, maybe a weakness. He found neither. Is this about money? He asked. Because if it is, we can... This isn't about money, I said. He rubbed his face. Then what do you want from me? I stared at him for a long moment. The man I had once trusted with my body, with my life, with my name. I wanted honesty, I said. You chose betrayal. He scoffed weakly. You're acting like I committed a crime. You did, I replied. Just not one the law handles. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. You're not this person, he said. You don't have power like this. You're just trying to scare me. I smiled. That was when his face changed. Because he recognized the smile. Not warmth, not forgiveness, control. How do you think your boss found out about the affair? I asked. His eyes widened. What affair? I tilted my head. The one with her. The one everyone pretends not to see. That's not public, he said quickly. No one knows. I stepped closer now. People always know. His jaw worked as he tried to regain footing. Did you tell them? I shook my head. I didn't have to. Fear slid fully into his eyes. You're bluffing, he said. I reached for my phone and opened a recording. His voice filled the room, laughing. She's not going to do anything. She's too soft. His face drained of color. That... He swallowed. Where did you get that? I locked the screen. You never asked where I come from, I said softly. You never asked how I live. You never asked who listens when I speak. He backed up a step. You're not... He stopped himself. You're not threatening me. No, I said. I'm explaining. He stared at me like he was seeing a stranger. Who are you? He asked. I met his eyes. The woman you underestimated. His phone buzzed. He glanced down, then up again, panic flooding back in. They froze my account, he said. All of it. I didn't respond. He dropped into a chair like his legs had given out. Please, he said, voice cracking. Whatever this is, end it. I leaned down until we were eye to eye. You didn't end it when you had the chance, I said quietly. Then I stood and walked to the door. You should go, I added, before this gets worse. He didn't argue. He didn't threaten. He left. She came the next day, my best friend, alone. She knocked softly, like she was afraid I wouldn't open the door. When I did, she burst into tears immediately. I didn't mean for it to happen like this, she sobbed. I never wanted to hurt you. I didn't invite her in. What did you want? I asked. She wiped her face. I loved him. I nodded slowly. You loved attention. She flinched. I was lonely, she whispered. So was I replied. You didn't see me climbing into my husband's bed." Her mouth opened, then closed. "I'm scared," she said finally. "He's acting different. He's angry. He blames me." I crossed my arms. "Of course he does." Her voice dropped. "People are looking at me differently. At work. Online. Consequences," I said calmly. She shook her head. "You don't understand. Something's happening. I feel like I'm being watched." I smiled faintly. "You are," I said. Her eyes snapped up. "What?" I leaned in just enough for her to hear me clearly. "You thought I was weak," I said. "You thought I wouldn't survive this." Her breath hitched. "But I don't just survive," I continued. "I win." Tears streamed down her face. "What are you?" I straightened. "The wrong woman to betray." She backed away slowly, fear written all over her face. "Please," she whispered. "Make it stop." I held her gaze, steady and unkind. "No," I said. She turned and ran. That night, I stood by the window and watched the city breathe. Messages poured in, from my husband, from her, from people who suddenly wanted distance, and one message that cut through all of it. From Adrian. "It started. They're unraveling." I typed back. "They finally see it." A pause. Then, "And you?" I looked at my reflection in the glass. Calm, composed, alive. "I'm still standing," I replied. Another pause. "That's why this ends with you winning," he wrote. I closed my eyes slowly. Because he was right. They had finally realized what they'd done. But it was too late. The Queen had already stepped into the open, and the game was no longer theirs to play. Not because anyone knew what happened in my marriage, because people who used to look through me had started looking around me, like they sensed something in the air. Like they finally understood that when I walked into a room, the temperature changed, and it wasn't because of my clothes or my name on paper. It was because power had stopped hiding. My husband didn't call the way he used to. No more angry demands. No more, "We need to talk now," like he still had authority over my time. Now it was careful, controlled, almost respectful. "Can we meet? Please, just once. I need to fix this. I can't breathe." I read every message. I didn't answer. Because I had learned something important about men like him. They only start speaking softly when they've run out of doors to slam. Marco updated me twice a day, always with the same calm tone that never begged for my reaction. "They're both losing support," he said. "People are backing away." "Good," I replied. He hesitated once, and I caught it immediately. "What?" I asked. Marco's eyes stayed neutral, but his voice turned tighter. "Your husband is trying to find out who you really are." That didn't surprise me. Fear makes people curious. It also makes them stupid. "How?" I asked. "He hired someone," Marco said. "A private investigator." I exhaled slowly. Pathetic. "It's not smart," Marco agreed, "but it's desperate. Desperate men do unpredictable things." I walked to the window and looked down at the street. Cars passed. People laughed. Someone carried groceries like the world was safe. "I want him watched," I said. Marco nodded. "Already done." "Not to protect him," I added, "to protect me from his panic." Marco's eyes flicked up. "Understood." That night, I got another message, from Adrian. Not dramatic, not romantic, just direct. "You're being followed. I handled it." My heartbeat changed in a clean, sharp way. I typed back, "How do you know?" His reply came fast. "Because I watch patterns too, and because your enemy is sloppy." I stared at the screen for a long second. I didn't like surprises. I liked him even less for being right. Then my phone buzzed again. "I'm not trying to control you. I'm trying to keep you alive." I didn't reply. Not because I didn't believe him. Because the moment I replied, this would become real in a way I couldn't undo. And yet, it already was. 2 days later, I met Adrian again. Different location. Same rules. Public enough to avoid traps. Private enough to talk like adults. He stood when I arrived. Same quiet respect as before. "You don't look surprised," he said. "I don't waste time being surprised," I replied, sitting across from him. He nodded slightly. "Fair." I studied him. He looked calm, but alert. Not performative. Not trying to prove masculinity. The kind of man who didn't need to speak loudly because people listened anyway. "Talk," I said. Adrian didn't smile. "Your husband hired someone to dig. He'll find small pieces, not enough to identify your structure, but enough to scare him." "Let him be scared," I replied. "You're not listening," Adrian said calmly. "When scared men feel cornered, they don't aim at the queen. They aim at whatever they think is softer." I stayed still. "Meaning?" "Meaning," he said. "He might target you socially, publicly. He might try to make you look unstable so people doubt you." I leaned back, crossing my legs. "He can try." Adrian's gaze didn't move. "And the woman?" "My ex-best friend," I corrected. Adrian nodded once. "She's not the threat. She's bait. She's loud. She's visible. She'll attract attention." I held his eyes. "What do you want from me, Adrian?" His answer came without hesitation. "A clear agreement." "That's a bold request." "No," he said. "It's respectful. I don't step into a queen's world without rules." I paused. That was the first time someone said it out loud like that. Queen, not woman, not ex-wife, not victim. He looked at me like he meant it. "What agreement?" I asked. "Honesty," he replied. "I won't ask you to shrink. You won't ask me to pretend I don't see what you are." I watched him closely. "And what am I?" He didn't flinch. "A leader, a dangerous one, and someone who got betrayed by a man too small to hold her." My jaw tightened. Not with pain, with recognition. "So what do you want?" I asked again. Adrian's voice stayed low. "To stand beside you, not in front, not above, beside." I didn't answer right away, because my entire life had trained me to hear hidden traps inside pretty words. But his words weren't pretty. They were plain, clean, specific. That's what made them dangerous. I stood up. "Walk me to my car." He did. He didn't touch me. He didn't insist. He simply stayed close enough that anyone watching would think twice. Before I got inside, he spoke quietly. "You're allowed to want more than revenge." My fingers tightened on my keys. "I want justice," I said. Adrian nodded. "And after justice?" I looked at him. For a second, I hated how calm he was, how sure, how unafraid. "After justice," I said honestly, "I want peace." He held my gaze. "Then don't choose peace that costs you your crown." I got into my car and drove away with my chest tight. Not from fear. From the simple truth I had tried to avoid. I wanted him close. And wanting him close meant risk. My husband finally snapped a week later. Not in private. In public. He showed up at a restaurant where I knew reporters and social climbers liked to lurk. People who didn't write news, but spread stories. He approached my table with a fake calm that didn't reach his eyes. "Can we talk?" he asked, loud enough for nearby ears to catch. I didn't look up immediately. I finished what I was doing, slow, controlled, then met his gaze. "Here?" I asked. He forced a smile. "Why not? You love performing, don't you?" There it was, the insult hidden inside a reasonable tone. He wanted me to explode. He wanted me to look emotional. He wanted a story he could control. I stood slowly, smoothing my coat like he wasn't worth rushing for. "You cheated on me," I said, clear and calm. "With my best friend." Gasps, whispers, people turning. My husband's face tightened. "Don't do this," he hissed, but he couldn't stop me now. "You humiliated me in my own home. I continued, same calm voice. And you're surprised I don't want to talk to you? His eyes flicked around, panic rising. Stop, he said through his teeth. You're making me look like a monster. I tilted my head slightly. You did that yourself. He stepped closer, voice dropping. You think you're powerful now? You think you can ruin me? I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. I don't think, I said softly. I know. That was the moment his face changed. Because he felt it. Not proof. Not facts. Something worse. Certainty. He leaned in, desperate. Tell me who you are. I held his gaze. Then I smiled. Small, controlled, cold. The woman you should have never betrayed, I said. And I walked away. No scene, no shaking hands, no tears. Just a clean exit. The kind that leaves people watching your back in silence. That night, I was back in my suite when Marco called. Signora, he said, voice tight. He's spiraling. Good, I replied. No, Marco said. Not good. He's meeting people he shouldn't meet. I closed my eyes slowly. Who? Marco exhaled. A rival crew. He's trying to trade information for protection. My stomach didn't drop. It hardened. He has no information, I said. He thinks he does, Marco replied, and that makes him dangerous. I stared at the city lights beyond the window. My husband was an idiot, but an idiot can still set fires. Where is he? I asked. Marco gave me the location. I didn't hesitate. I'm going, I said. Signora? Marco started. I'm going, I repeated, calm and final. I grabbed my coat, my second phone, my keys, and when I opened the door, Adrian was there, like he had been waiting, not blocking, not controlling, just present. You got the call too, I said. Adrian nodded once. Yes. I held his gaze. I'm handling this. I know, he replied. I'm coming anyway. I took one step closer. This isn't your war. Adrian's voice stayed calm. If he's trading your name, it becomes my war the second you walk into that building alone. I stared at him. I hated that he was right. Rules, I said. He nodded. Always. Stay behind me, I said. You don't speak unless I tell you. Adrian's mouth curved slightly. Yes, Signora. I should have corrected him. I didn't. We arrived at a warehouse that smelled like cheap smoke and panic. Marco's men were already positioned, silent, watching. I walked inside like I owned the air. Because I did. My husband was there, standing too straight, trying to look confident, surrounded by men who weren't his kind of dangerous. He turned when he saw me, and his face drained. You, he started. One of the men beside him laughed. This your wife? My husband swallowed. Ex, he said quickly. She's not important. I didn't react. I simply looked at the man who laughed. Who are you? I asked. He smiled. Someone who likes a good deal. I nodded once. Then you should know deals with desperate men are never good. The man's smile faded slightly. My husband stepped forward, voice cracking. I didn't have a choice. I finally looked at him. Everything you did was a choice, I said, including betraying me, including coming here. His eyes filled with something ugly. Not love, not regret. Fear mixed with rage. You ruined me, he snapped. I leaned in just enough. No, I said softly. You ruined yourself. The rival man watched us, amused. So what is she then? My husband opened his mouth. Adrian shifted behind me, subtle, protective. I lifted one hand without looking back. A silent command. Adrian stayed still. I turned back to the rival man. I'm the reason you don't want this deal, I said calmly. The man stared at me longer now. Then he glanced at my husband like he was suddenly annoyed. You brought me a problem. My husband panicked. No, she's bluffing. I smiled again. And Marco stepped out of the shadows. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just present. The rival man's eyes widened a fraction. He recognized Marco, which meant he recognized me. The warehouse went very quiet. My husband looked between us like his brain couldn't keep up. Signora, Marco said, respectful. My husband's mouth opened. Nothing came out. In 1 second, his entire world collapsed into a truth he had never prepared for. I stepped closer to my husband until he could smell my perfume and panic at the same time. You wanted to know who I am, I said softly. Now you know. His voice came out as a whisper. Oh my God. I tilted my head. Yes. I turned slightly, addressing the rival man. You don't want his deal, I said. And you don't want his information. Because if you touch my life, you touch my territory. The rival man swallowed once, then nodded. Understood, he said. And just like that, the threat ended. Not with a fight, with recognition. We walked out. My husband didn't follow. He couldn't, because for the first time in his life, he understood the size of the thing he had betrayed. Back in the car, the adrenaline drained out of me in a slow wave. I kept my face calm, but my hands were tight on my lap. Adrian noticed. He didn't speak immediately. He waited until we were alone in the quiet of the suite. Then he said, That was the moment. What moment? I asked. The moment you could have erased him, Adrian replied. And you didn't. I stared at him. Death isn't justice. Adrian nodded. That's what I needed to know. I stepped closer. Needed to know? He met my gaze, steady. That you're not cruel. You're controlled. My throat tightened. I hated how much that mattered to me. I hated how much I wanted him to touch me after seeing me like that, after seeing my power and still looking at me like I was worth more than it. Don't romanticize me, I said quietly. I'm not, Adrian replied. I'm choosing you. The silence between us turned thick. I took one more step. So choose me, I said, but understand the rules. Adrian's voice dropped. Say them. I don't belong to you, I said. I don't ask permission. I don't shrink. Adrian nodded. Good. And if you ever try to control me, I added, you'll lose me. He didn't flinch. I'm not here to hold you down, he said. I'm here to hold the line with you. That sentence hit me harder than any apology my husband ever tried to fake. Because it wasn't begging. It was partnership. I reached for Adrian's tie and pulled him closer. Not gently. A controlled hunger. A need that wasn't about being saved. It was about being met. His hands found my waist, firm, respectful, like he understood exactly what I was giving and what I wasn't. When he kissed me, it wasn't soft. It was steady. It said, I see you. I'm not afraid. I'm staying. I broke the kiss just long enough to speak. This doesn't make me weak, I whispered. Adrian's eyes were locked on mine. It makes you real. I kissed him again. And for the first time in a long time, I let myself feel pleasure without guilt, without fear, without losing control. Later, with the city quiet outside, I sat against the headboard and looked at my phone. Messages from my husband. A flood of them. Please! I didn't know. Tell me what to do. I'll do anything. Anything. Too late. I handed the phone to Marco the next morning. No more access, I said. Marco nodded. You're ready? Yes, I replied. I'm ready. For the final move? Marco asked. I looked toward the window where Adrian stood, watching the street like he could see danger before it arrived. I felt the answer settle in my chest, clean and unshakable. I'm ready to end it, I said. Marco's gaze softened slightly, respectful. And after? I didn't hesitate. After, I said. I choose my life. Marco nodded once. Then we finish." I turned toward Adrian. He looked back. No fear, no confusion. Just that same calm certainty. The kind that didn't try to own me. The kind that stood beside me. And I knew exactly how Chapter 7 would begin. With my husband thinking he could still bargain. And with me proving that a queen doesn't bargain for what is already hers. She takes it. Cleanly. Finally. And with love waiting on the other side. Not as a cage, but as a crown shared with the right man. The end did not arrive with chaos. It arrived with certainty. After the night at the warehouse, something inside my husband finally collapsed. Not his pride, not his ego, but his illusion of relevance. For the first time since I had met him, he understood that the world no longer responded to him. Not with anger, not with resistance, with silence. His messages changed again. No more bargaining, no more false confidence. Just a quiet panic that leaked through every word. "I don't understand what's happening. No one answers my calls. Please talk to me. I need to fix this. Tell me what you want." What I wanted was already happening. Marco confirmed it the next morning. He stood across from me, calm as ever, holding a thin folder that didn't need to be thick to be devastating. "He's finished," Marco said. Completely. I didn't ask what that meant. I already knew. But Marco explained anyway, because clarity matters. His accounts are closed permanently, not frozen, closed. His business contacts distanced themselves without explanation. Protection was quietly withdrawn. No threats. No warnings. He's not being hunted. I turned to look at Marco. Then what is he? Marco met my eyes. Invisible. Invisible. For a man like my husband, that was the worst fate imaginable. "And her?" I asked. Marco hesitated for half a second. "She's leaving the city. She quit her job, changed her number. She's terrified someone will come for her." I felt nothing. Not satisfaction. Not pity. Just distance. "That's enough," I said. Marco nodded. "Yes, signora." That afternoon, I agreed to see my husband one last time. Not because he deserved closure, because I refused to carry unfinished echoes into my future. We met in a quiet hotel suite, neutral ground chosen carefully, a place where powerful people ended things without witnesses. He was already there when I arrived, standing near the window, shoulders tight, hands clenched behind his back like a man waiting for judgment. When he turned and saw me, something broke in his posture. "You look..." He stopped, searching for the right word. "Calm." "I am," I replied. He nodded slowly, eyes glassy, unfocused. "I didn't know who you were." "You didn't want to know," I corrected. "You preferred me small, convenient, easy to ignore." The words landed heavy between us. "I loved you," he said quietly. "I believe you," I replied. "But your love required my silence, and I don't disappear for anyone." Silence filled the room, not awkward. "I made a mistake," he whispered. "No," I said gently. "You made a choice, over and over again." His breathing grew uneven. "Is there anything I can do now?" I studied him, not with anger, not with heartbreak, but with complete detachment. "Yes," I said. "You can leave my life completely. No calls, no stories, no explanations." His jaw tightened. "And if I don't?" I stepped closer, my voice low and steady, not raised. "Then the silence you're experiencing now will feel merciful compared to what comes next." He believed me. I could see it in his eyes, in the way the fight drained from his body, in the way his shoulders sagged under the weight of reality. "I understand," he whispered. I straightened. "That's the last thing you'll ever receive from me. Understanding." I walked out without looking back. And for the first time since the betrayal, my chest felt light, not empty, free. She reached out once more too, late at night, a trembling message filled with panic and regret. I'm leaving. I swear I won't talk about you. I just want this to stop. I stared at the screen for a long moment. Then I typed back. It already has. Now live with who you chose to be. I blocked her. Not in anger. In peace. The days that followed were quiet in a way I had never experienced before. Not empty. Stable. Power has a sound when it settles. It's subtle. It's the absence of resistance. It's how things move smoothly when no one dares to push against you. I stopped pretending. Stopped dividing myself into versions designed to make others comfortable. I stepped fully into my life. Every part of it. Adrian stayed close, never hovering, never directing, never attempting to control my world. One night, standing beside me as the city lights stretched endlessly below us, he asked softly, "Do you regret not destroying them completely?" I didn't hesitate. "No." "Why?" he asked. "Because destroying them would mean they still mattered," I replied. "They don't." He nodded slowly. "That's power." "No," I corrected. "That's freedom." Weeks later, we attended a private gathering, the kind where no introductions are needed because everyone already knows who matters. I didn't announce myself. I didn't need to. The room adjusted when I entered. Conversations softened, eyes followed, decisions shifted. Marco stood nearby, steady as ever. Adrian stood beside me. Not in front, not behind, beside. Someone raised a glass. To strength. I lifted mine calmly. To loyalty, I said. And to knowing when to walk away without losing yourself. The room echoed agreement. Later that night, alone with Adrian, the silence between us felt earned. "You never asked me to be softer," I said quietly. "Why would I?" he replied. "You didn't survive everything you did to become smaller." I turned toward him. "You're not afraid of me." "I'd only be afraid," he said, "if you weren't exactly who you are." That was the moment I knew this wasn't temporary. This wasn't desire filling a gap. This was choice meeting choice. I rested my head against his chest, not because I needed protection, because I wanted closeness, and wanting didn't weaken me. It confirmed my power. My husband faded from my life the way men like him always do, quietly, without legacy. His name stopped circulating, his story stopped being told, and my former best friend became a chapter I didn't reopen. They weren't enemies anymore. They were lessons. In the end, the truth was simple. I wasn't betrayed because I was naive. I was betrayed because I was powerful, and surrounded by people who confused access with ownership. They were wrong. I chose love without surrendering control. I chose a man who didn't fear my crown, and I chose myself above everything else. That is what makes a queen dangerous. Not revenge, not cruelty. Choice. And I will always choose myself. Living without hiding isn't loud. It's steady. It's waking up without bracing for disappointment. It's standing in your truth while the right person stands beside you. Not trying to lead, not trying to claim. I don't regret the woman I was, but I honor the woman I became, because in the end, the queen always wins. Before you go, I'd love to ask you for a small favor. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe to the channel. It helps me more than you can imagine and keeps these videos coming. The link is right below the video, and if you're watching on TV, just point your phone's camera at the QR code on your screen. With this simple gesture, you support a creator like me in the most powerful way. Thank you so much, and may God bless you.